Hey guys, Ricky Martin here with RickyMartinTheSecurityGuy.com. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to prepare and pass the CISSP exam. So let's jump right in. In my case, what we did, actually a little bit of backstory, had gone to lunch with a buddy of mine who suggested at the end of a lunch that we should go for the CISSP. It's something that both of us were interested in, and we were both thinking of pursuing it, but neither one had actually followed through. And I had previously, studied for it a little bit, and never actually went through and booked the exam or did anything to follow up on it. So we both kind of committed to ourselves that we were gonna go for the CISSP. So, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, how to prepare for certification exams, which I'll put a link in the description below. One of the things that kind of solidified this was committing to a plan to actually get it done. So this was back in October of 2019. We had said, give ourselves about 3 months to prepare for it, and then go from there. So with that in mind, we set a date of end of January. So for me, which was, an ideal kind of target given, had holidays coming up. We had, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, all that stuff coming up, New Year's. So this gave us a good window to take into account all the other events in life that could possibly get in the way of preparing for the exam. Otherwise, you could probably compress, if you so felt like it, compress that schedule and take this much quicker and complete it much faster. I've done that myself for other tests and certifications, so it's very realistic. So the big thing with the CISSP, which I'll jump into, is the resources, what I use to study. So I essentially used this book, the CISSP Study Guide, 3rd edition, got it off of Amazon. Used that as well as the 11th hour study guide from the same company, Singress. I personally preferred the 11th hour. It's a much more condensed study guide, has really just the core material that you need to be aware of, and then using this as kind of a backup reference for anything that you need to go a little deeper in. That's really where I leverage the books. Besides the books, I used the Study app on, I personally use Android, so I used an Android version of the CISSP Study app. And really the way I used that was to leverage it for quick little mini tests, if you want. I'd essentially take, 10 questions at a time in the practice test mode and kind of run through those whenever I had some free time, while waiting in line at the store, waiting to pick something up, as I'm cooking, whatever it might be. Even sometimes, while you're watching TV, just doing something else during commercial break, whatever it might be. That's really how I leveraged it, and I used it to that end. It helps to get familiar with the types of questions that you're going to see on the exam itself, and how ISC squared likes to structure those questions and word the questions and the answers too, because that's really a key part of learning how to interpret the exam and the questions and how to pick the right answers. As I mentioned, the books. The other resource our group used as well was the Boson practice tests. Tests are really, especially the Boson tests, I found were really good. They focused in on a lot of the key topics, very true to the style of the ISC squared exam, the Pearson exam. So very similar experience as far as the test questions. I would say even maybe more technical than you need to be for the actual exam. So that, that's kind of one of the topics I wanted to cover on here was, especially for people that are very technical and have a lot of technical background. Like myself, I've been in the industry for 20 years, have done everything from building computers, building networks, and all the way to managing applications and troubleshooting databases, whatever it might be. Sometimes it's hard to turn that problem solving switch off, and that's kind of the key thing with the CISSP exam is you have to think of it like a manager at a high level. That's probably the best advice I can give anybody taking the exam is don't get too technical with it. Don't get too in the weeds, especially with some of the questions and some of the ways they ask the questions. To give you an example, something might be like, what would be the least risk, right, for a scenario or something like that? And there's probably a couple answers that would be more appropriate from a technical standpoint, but you have to keep in mind what the question's asking you. If it's a risk-based question, you want to give the best answer from a risk perspective versus a technical solution. And that's kind of the biggest challenge I know with a lot of people who've taken the exam who are technical is kind of taking off that technical hat and putting on the manager hat and thinking from that perspective. And that's really the challenge. I know even in like I said, in our study group, when we would review some of these questions, some of the answers would be, oh yeah, that's the answer because it's the right technical answer. But then you have to kind of take a step back and say, what's the managerial or higher level answer that I would be looking for? And that's probably the best piece of advice I can give anybody who's taking the exam is that you won't really want to a certain degree, forget your technical skills and think as if it was a very 1,000-foot view, looking at a problem and the high level solution. Don't try and look at bits and bytes or think down to the base levels that you might get if you were technically trying to solve a problem or answer questions. You really want to focus in on the management level type of scenarios and the solutions that would be, especially a lot of the questions with this are security and risk based. So you want to think of a security scenario that would be high level, especially with some of the scenario questions, what the best option might be from a risk perspective. So like I said, definitely encourage anyone who wants to take the CISSP exam. It is a tough exam from a test taking perspective, from the amount and breadth of knowledge you need to have. But if it's something you're looking to accomplish and you put yourself to it and dedicate the time, you definitely can achieve it. Like I said, myself, I did it on the first try, went the full 150 questions, but came out successful. So that's it. If you have any questions or any specific things you'd like to follow up, definitely comment, let me know. Hit the subscribe link and hit the bell to get notified when I post some new content, and stay tuned for the next video coming up in a little bit.